Well, good morning, Bethel Church. My name is Gary, and it's my pleasure to be with you this morning, even though I'm here on screen rather than in person. Here we are on this day where all across the world, people are celebrating the best news, the most fantastic news that the world has ever heard. And you know what it's like when you have some good news? It's the most natural thing in the world, or it should be the most natural thing in the world to want to share that good news. I was remembering when one of my grandsons was born in Manchester, and it all happened very quickly. And my wife and I were driving up to Manchester to meet our new grandson, Milo Gibbs. And as we were driving up there, I was needing a coffee. How many of you know the caffeine is one of God's great gifts? So we pulled into a McDonald's drive-through, and I wound down the window of the car, and there's the assistant standing there at the opening in the building. He was aged about 11 or something, and he said to me, "Yeah," and I said, "Good morning. How are you today?" "I'm all right." I said, "Isn't it just a brilliant day? The sun's shining, the birds are singing. Just great to be alive, isn't it?" He said, "What do you want?" And I said, "Well, I'd like a large latte, please, but I've got some brilliant news for you. Milo Gibbs, my new grandson, has just been born in Manchester, and me and my wife, Sally, we're just on our way up there to see him. Isn't that fantastic?" "Yeah, I guess so. £1.89, thank you very much." And he didn't seem to be that excited about the fact that my grandson had been born, but I didn't care. I was going to tell him anyway, because it was good news. Now, as followers of Jesus, we believe that we have got the most incredible news for a world that right now just seems to be hearing so much bad news, don't they? I mean, so much bad stuff happening in the world. You switch on the TV at 6 o'clock any evening and it really can quite depress you. But here is the good news, the gospel. The gospel means good news. I'd like to unpack it for you very quickly this morning, and then maybe give you an opportunity to respond to what God has done for us through the person of Jesus Christ. So what is that good news? Well, first of all, the good news is that Jesus Christ, the Son of God, died on a cross for you and for me. Now, you might say to me, "Well, Gary, I understand that the Christian faith makes this big deal about the crucifixion of Jesus, but what does that really have to do with me living in the 21st century, different part of the world, different culture? What's it got to do with me?" And that's a really good question. But I want to suggest to you this morning that when Jesus was crucified, something remarkable, something world-changing was going on when he died that criminal's death. I heard a story a while ago about a young guy in America who was sitting at home one night watching his TV when the door into his apartment burst open and his younger brother came running in wearing a blood-soaked shirt. And his younger brother explained to him that he'd just been in a street fight and he had knifed a man. And in the distance, they could hear the sound of the police sirens arriving on the scene. And the elder brother realized that the police would be able to follow the trail of blood through to the apartment where they were. So he said to his younger brother, he said, "Take off your shirt." And as the younger brother took off his shirt, the elder brother took off his shirt as well. And they swapped shirts. And just a couple of moments later, the police broke into the apartment and they saw the elder brother wearing the shirt that was covered in blood. And so they arrested him and he was taken away and charged with murder and eventually put on trial and found guilty. And many years afterwards, on death row, he was actually executed for a crime that he hadn't committed. He was totally innocent. But if you can understand this with me this morning, folks, what I'm suggesting to you is this, that 2,000 years ago, on that cross outside of Jerusalem, your elder brother took the blame for all of your wrongdoing, for all of my wrongdoing, for all of our rebellion against God, for all of the selfishness and accumulated rubbish in our lives, when Jesus was crucified, he was taking the blame for you and me. The Bible puts it like this. It says, Christ died once for all, the righteous for the unrighteous, in order to bring us to God. And the great news this morning, this really good news is this, that if you would turn back to God, if you would come back to God, God will receive you. You can welcome him into your life. You can have a friendship with God, not because you or I are good enough or deserve that in some way, but in some incredible way, Jesus dying on the cross made it possible for us to be forgiven. He made it possible for us to start over again and have this fresh relationship with God. Now that's good news. There are not many people that I meet who would say no to having a friendship with the creator of the universe. And even though it sounds almost too good to be true, that's what Jesus has made possible. When he stretched out his arms on the cross, it was as if he was taking hold of his Father with one hand and taking hold of you and me with the other. And he was making it possible to come back into friendship with God. Jesus said, I am the way. No one comes to the Father except through me. But if this morning, if you would put your trust in what Jesus did on the cross, you could know what it is to start all over again. Jesus, the purest person who has ever lived, took upon himself all of our mess, all of the dirt of our lives, all of the accumulated rubbish, so that we can know what it is to have our shame taken away, to have our regrets dealt with, to have our guilt removed, and have a friendship with God. So that's good news for people like you and me. But the second part of that good news, the second part of that gospel, is that Jesus Christ not only died for you and me, I want to say to you this morning, he lives for you and me. He lives for you and me. 3 days after the crucifixion, God said, that's enough. And with his incredible power, he raised Jesus from the dead. And what that means for you and me, it means two things. First of all, it means that your life and my life can be changed for the better. If we welcome the living Lord Jesus into our lives, if we open up our lives to him and invite him to come and live in our lives, everything can be changed in the most incredible way. The Bible puts it like this. It says, when someone becomes a Christian, a follower of Jesus, God makes them brand new. All the old has gone. That's finished. Everything has become new. Imagine for a minute that you saw a friend later today and you said to them, hey, how's things? And they said to you, fantastic. And you said, really? And they said, yeah. Ever since I've started putting a squashed banana in my left shoe every morning, life has just taken on a whole new dimension. Now, if a friend said that to you this afternoon, I wonder what you'd be thinking about your friend. Exactly. But what about if you observed your friend over a few months, and every time you saw them, their life did seem to have improved. They seemed to have a smile on their face, a sense of happiness, purpose, meaning and direction in their lives. And every time you asked them about it, they put it down to having a squashed banana in their left shoe, a new one every morning. What about if there were tens of thousands of people in the West Midlands who were all saying the same thing? Squash banana in your left shoe every morning changes your life. What about if there were millions of people all over the world who joined the squash banana in the left shoe brigade? My question to you this morning is this: what might you be tempted to try? Because you never know, do you? You never know. Now, here's the deal. There are in the world today something like 2 billion people, 2,000 million people who self-identify as followers of Jesus Christ. And even though they come from every nation and every language group and all the rest, any one of them could stand and say, my life has been changed. My past has been dealt with. I feel like I've been given a new start. I have a friendship with my Creator. and I've got a sense of direction for my life that wasn't there anymore. And it's ever since I welcomed the living Lord Jesus into my life. Well, it's a really awesome thing to say that they've all got it wrong or they're all deceived in some way, especially when you see the fruit of that in so many individual lives. So the challenge for you today is, how about it? How about you took that step of faith? How about if you did welcome Jesus into your life and see if he could make the change for you? I know he can, because he did it for me many years ago, and he's done it for so many, many people all across the world. So your life can be changed because Jesus lives for you. But also, even more, because Jesus rose from the dead, then the confidence that we have is that death is no longer the end for people like you and me. I guess death is that ghost that chases us through the whole of our lives. It's like, somebody famous once said, you and I, we've got a 1 in 1 chance of dying. Every one of us is going to happen to in the end. And it seems like we're traveling at 100 miles an hour towards this brick wall called death. But one of the things I've discovered is this, that Jesus came to set us free when all of our lives we were living with that fear of death, and the brick wall is changed into as it were, a thin curtain. So when this life finishes, a whole new life can begin. Not so far away from where you're sitting right now, my mum was in a care home in West Brom. And a few years ago now, she came to the end of her life. And I remember sitting by her bed just a day or two before she died, and she was spending most of the time sleeping. She was suffering with cancer. And on one occasion, she woke up and she looked at me. I was the only one in the room with her. And she asked me this question. She said, Gary, am I dying? Now, what do you say to your mum when she asks you that question, when she's so ill and she's got some early dementia issues going on? And this is what I said to her. I said, Mum, we're all dying. We're all dying. But the thing is, Mum, you're going to meet Jesus really, really soon. Now, in 1984 at Villa Park, my mum had said a big yes to following Jesus when she listened to a guy called Billy Graham speaking. And it made all the difference in the world to her life. And because of that, she knew that death was not the end. It was just the beginning. And I know I'm going to see her again. So here's the good news. Jesus died for you and he lives for you. And the good news is that you can actually meet with Jesus even this morning. You don't have to wait. You can experience Jesus right now for yourself. Now you might say, well, what do I need to do? How does that work? Well, I can give you the words of a prayer that I prayed many, many years ago now when I took that step of saying a big yes to Jesus and welcoming him into my life. And it's a prayer that says 3 things. God, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for walking away from you. Jesus Christ, thank you so much that you gave your life on the cross for me and now you live for me. Please come into my life and make a difference. And I know this morning that if you prayed a prayer like that, God would answer your prayer. Jesus said, ask and you will receive. That's a promise. And one thing I know is Jesus doesn't break his promises. So if you were to ask him sincerely this morning, if you were to ask him to come into your life, to make that difference, to forgive you for your past, to give you that friendship with God here and now, and to give you that certainty for the future, he'll answer your prayer. I know he will.